Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into one of the most enduring stories ever told. But right off the bat, I want you to completely forget the idea of this as just some dusty old play you might have been forced to read in high school. We are breaking down a dark, fast-paced psychological thriller. It's an absolute masterclass in ambition, manipulation, and the devastating consequences of our own choices. Together, we're going to map out exactly how a decorated war hero spirals into a completely paranoid tyrant. Let's get into it. This really brings us to the core question of our entire analysis. Are we the masters of our own fate, or merely actors in a pre-written play? I mean, it's a concept philosophers have been arguing over for centuries, and it is the absolute thematic engine of this text. When you're presented with a grand destiny, do your next choices just fulfill what was already meant to be, or does your own ambition actually manufacture that outcome? Keep that question rolling around at the back of your mind as we watch our main characters navigate their increasingly bloody paths.
All right, to unpack this complex narrative clearly, we're going to follow a quick thematic roadmap. First, the spark of prophecy. Second, the costs of blind ambition. Third, defying traditional gender rules. Fourth, destiny versus free will. And finally, number 5, loyalty, betrayal, and revenge.
Starting right off with Section 1, the spark of prophecy.
So, right away we're introduced to the witches. This malevolent trio serves as the undeniable spark for the entire plot. But it is absolutely crucial to understand their true nature. They are not just some impartial fortune tellers gazing into a crystal ball. They actually meet with their goddess Hecate, and it becomes explicitly clear that they do not have Macbeth's best interests at heart. They are intentionally dropping these incomplete visions, giving him just enough information to get his wheels turning about becoming king, essentially baiting a massive trap that's going to lead to his ultimate demise. And here are the specific predictions they drop on him. Picture this. The witches appear to Macbeth and his loyal buddy, Banquo, right after they've survived a major bloody battle. They look right at Macbeth and tell him he's going to become Thane of Cawdor, and eventually, the King of Scotland. But they also have a little prophecy for Banquo. They predict he will never be king himself, but that his descendants will sit on the throne. Instantly, these seemingly simple statements plant some incredibly dangerous seeds. For Macbeth, it's the seed of unchecked ambition, and for both of them, the deep seed of paranoia. Which brings us to Section 2, the cost of blind ambition. Think of Macbeth's rapid ascension like a terrifying set of dominoes. Initially, he's the Thane of Glamis, right? He's this loyal, super successful Scottish nobleman who just literally saved the kingdom by putting down Macdonald-Wal's rebellion. Because of this heroism, King Duncan, who by all accounts is a genuinely good, respectable leader, rewards Macbeth with a brand new title, Thane of Cawdor. And boom, that's the exact title the witches predicted. The first domino falls. Macbeth sees this reward not just as an honor, but as undeniable proof. He decides the witches must be right. His lust for power completely takes over, and he sets his sights on that final title, King of Scotland.
But here's the thing. Macbeth doesn't make that massive leap from loyal soldier to murderous traitor entirely by himself. Enter Lady Macbeth. Once she hears about this prophecy, she is intensely susceptible to the lure of power. It's actually Lady Macbeth whose thoughts immediately turn to murder. She starts plotting and ruthlessly pushing her husband to ditch his morals, assassinate the good King Duncan, and just take the throne. The witches might have introduced the idea, but make no mistake, Lady Macbeth is the one who steps on the gas pedal and forces it into a bloody reality.
Moving right along to Section 3, defying traditional gender roles. Look at this incredibly dark, powerful request she makes. Lady Macbeth literally asks the spirits to unsex her. She is intentionally trying to abandon the characteristics expected of a woman in her position. She's basically asking to be stripped of all feminine empathy, compassion, and sensitivity so she can just be filled to the brim with sheer ruthlessness. She wants to ensure she feels absolutely zero guilt about carrying out her part in King Duncan's brutal assassination. And this sets up a perfect contrast that shows us Lady Macbeth's brilliant, albeit totally terrifying, adaptability. Behind closed doors, whenever Macbeth shows even a hint of doubt or guilt, she ruthlessly attacks his courage. She basically calls him unmanly just to goad him into action. But in public, look at how she operates. When the other lords discover the king's body and Macbeth starts to look a little bit suspicious, she doesn't hesitate for a second to use conventional gender expectations to her advantage. She fakes a delicate feminine faking spell just to create a sudden distraction. She weaponizes both masculinity and femininity to get exactly what she wants. All right, Section 4, Destiny versus Free Will. So we have to ask ourselves, did Macbeth exert his free will to serve the prophecy, or was he genuinely bound by fate? The text tells us that right up until the witches appeared, Macbeth was intensely loyal. But when he got that title of Corridor, he made a choice. He chose to believe the rest of the prophecy. Literally no magic forced his hand to hold that dagger, right? A deep lust for power and this new belief in his own invincibility drove his actions. He used his free will in service of the prophecy, and leaning into that supposed destiny caused him to act incredibly rashly.
Let's track this downward spiral, because it escalates fast. Step 1. He kills King Duncan. But here, his mind is heavily divided. He's prompted by the prophecy and seriously goaded by his wife. Step 2. He kills his best friend Banquo. Remember, Banquo was the only other person who heard the prophecy, and the witches said Banquo's kids would be kings. So Macbeth, acting completely on his own this time just to protect his stolen throne, hires hitmen. And then, step 3. Absolute, unchecked paranoia. He orders the murder of the loyal Macduff's completely innocent wife and child. He has fully transitioned from a manipulated husband to a totally unrestrained, destructive tyrant acting on his own paranoid impulses.
But you can't just exercise your free will to commit absolute atrocities and walk away clean. It has dire consequences. Both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth prove that the human mind just cannot handle the weight of that kind of darkness. Lady Macbeth's initially ironclad resolve just utterly shatters. She claims she wouldn't feel any guilt, right? Well, that repressed guilt turns into severe hysteria. It physically manifests in these bizarre actions, like her incessant hand-washing, where she's desperately trying to scrub imaginary blood off her skin. It drives her to sleepwalking and ultimately a really tragic descent into total insanity and death. It's the ultimate punishment for her choices.
And Macbeth certainly doesn't escape the mental toll either. He gets the rewards he wanted, the crown, the power, the whole shebang, but the guilt just relentlessly gnaws at him. This quote from Act 5 is incredibly revealing. He's facing Macduff on the battlefield, and he actually says, "My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already." He is openly acknowledging the immense, crushing weight of having slaughtered Macduff's innocent family. Even a hardened, bloody tyrant recognizes when his own soul has been irreparably damaged.
Which leads us directly into our final act, Section 5, Loyalty, Betrayal, and Revenge.
I want to highlight this massive number right here, 10,000. So after Duncan's murder, his older son, Malcolm, had understandably fled to England, terrified for his own life. He was super hesitant to return and challenge Macbeth. But Macduff, grieving the absolute devastation of his family, tracks Malcolm down and convinces him of how desperately Scotland needs its rightful king back. Malcolm finally overcomes his fear, and he returns with a staggering army of 10,000 English soldiers, completely armed and loaded with a powerful thirst for revenge. Ultimately, the universe of this story violently balances itself out. The loyalists to Duncan's bloodline are rewarded. Malcolm reclaims his rightful place as king. Banquo, though murdered, leaves a long legacy of kings exactly as the prophecy stated. And Macduff gets his profound, personal revenge by being the actual one to strike down Macbeth on the battlefield, while keeping his own life and honor. On the flip side, the traitors are utterly punished. Macbeth loses the trust and faith of literally everyone before being killed. Lady Macbeth is consumed by her own mind and dies in insanity. The ultimate cost of their blind ambition was just absolute destruction.
Which leaves us with one final, lingering thought to chew on today. If the witches had never spoken to him out on that heath, if they had never planted that incomplete vision of power in his head in the first place, would Macbeth still have fallen? Was the terrible ambition that destroyed him and his wife always lying dormant inside of him, just waiting for a spark? Or did the prophecy literally construct a monster out of a good and loyal man? Think about the true source of that downfall the next time you reflect on the choices you make to achieve your own ambitions. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you all next time.